Even though writing a book of any length is obviously a fantastic accomplishment, certain authors have truly pushed the envelope throughout history. For one book, they wrote more than some people could possibly read in a lifetime. Also, this isn't only a trait of writers from the past. The most extensive stories ever told have been penned by some of today's most well-liked authors. Let's go and find out if your favorite book makes the list of the longest novels in history. The Lord of the Rings. J.R.R. Tolkien. The Lord of the Rings, a work of literary genius by English author J.R.R. Tolkien, is one of the most well-known and beloved tales in the whole world. Despite being widely believed to be a trilogy, The Lord of the Rings was really only divided into 3 parts by the publishers because there was a national paper shortage, which made publishing a single book prohibitively expensive. War and Peace. Leo Tolstoy. War and Peace, one of the most well-known and lengthy works of Russian literature, is also one of the longest. Leo Tolstoy's work was first released in sections over the period of 2 years in the Russian newspaper The Russian Messenger before being published in its whole for the first time in 1869. The total length of the work was 1,225 pages. Artamene ou le Grand Cyrus. Madeleine de Scudéry. Madeleine de Scudéry penned Artamene ou le Grand Cyrus, also known as Artamene, or Cyrus the Great, between 1649 and 1653. 13,095 pages made up the initial printing. Over 400 interconnected characters from 10 different locations were told their stories in these pages. In Search of Lost Time. Marcel Proust. Proust's vast masterpiece, In Search of Lost Time, holds the Guinness World Record for longest novel ever published and is widely regarded as the best piece of fiction ever written. Over 9 million characters were totaled after counting all of them. Les Miserables. Victor Hugo. Les Miserables, a masterwork by Victor Hugo, was first published in 1862 and eventually transformed into one of the most well-known musicals in history more than a century later. The epic work covers a wide range of topics in its 1,462 pages, including politics, romance, and architecture. Shanghai. David Rodenberg. In addition to being a theater director, David Rodenberg wrote one of the longest books in modern literature. The 2008 novel, Shanghai, which has 787 pages and almost 800,000 words, covers more than 2,000 years of Chinese history, from the death of the first emperor through the Opium Wars of the 19th century. A Dance to the Music of Time. Anthony Powell. A Dance to the Music of Time, which was published in the 20th century between 1951 and 1975, is Anthony Powell's crowning achievement. The same-named artwork by Nicolas Poussin from the 17th century is credited as being the inspiration for the book. Men of Goodwill. Jules Romans. Jules Romans, a French author, dramatist, and screenwriter, worked on Men of Goodwill for 14 years before it was finally published. Between 1932 and 1946, 27 volumes of the book were published. It is one of the longest novels ever written, with more than 2 million words and around 8,000 pages. Infinite Jest. David Foster Wallace. Since its first release in 1996, the massive and daunting book, Infinite Jest, by David Foster Wallace has sold over 1 million copies worldwide. The 1,079-page work has earned the moniker, Generation X Ulysses, because to its unmatched originality, internal notations, and challenging reading. The Tale of Genji. Murasaki Shikibu. One of the first known works of literature, The Tale of Genji, is from the first decade of the 11th century. It is credited to Murasaki Shikibu, a noblewoman from the Heian era, and is widely regarded as the first novel ever written. This old manuscript has an English translation that is more than 1,300 pages lengthy. Atlas Shrugged. Ayn Rand. Atlas Shrugged, the final book by prolific Russian-born American novelist Ayn Rand, has developed an enduring reputation since it was first released in 1957. It is the longest of Rand's 4 works, clocking in at 645,000 words. Joseph and His Brothers. Thomas Mann. Thomas Mann regarded Joseph and His Brothers as his best work. It was undoubtedly his longest. Joseph and His Brothers was published in 4 sections over the course of 10 years, from 1933 to 1944. The book recounts the well-known Bible tale of Joseph, who was sold into slavery by his brothers, over the length of almost 1,500 pages. The Stand, Stephen King. Over 60 books have been produced by Stephen King, who is undoubtedly the most prolific and productive living author. His longest is The Stand, from 1978, which has 1,153 pages in the full version. Juliette, Marquis de Sade. Marquis de Sade, the notoriously depraved French writer and philosopher from the 18th century, was a leading figure in the French libertine movement. One of his many controversial novels includes Juliette, which was published anonymously in 1797. Immediately after publication, Napoleon himself ordered the capture of the author, and Sade was put in prison until his death 13 years later. Kelidar, Mahmoud Dawlatabadi. Kelidar chronicles the struggles of a Kurdish family residing in northern Iran in the years following World War II across a whopping 2,836 pages. The work, which is today regarded as a masterpiece of Iranian literature, was written by author Mahmoud Dawlatabadi over the course of 15 years. Shogun, James Clavell. James Clavell's epic narrative, Shogun, is divided into several books, the first of which, set towards the end of the 16th century, traces the voyage of the first Englishman to enter Japan. The longest book in the tale is Shogun, which has 1,152 pages, but the other books aren't much shorter. Miss MacIntosh, My Darling, Marguerite Young. Marguerite Young started writing her masterpiece, Miss MacIntosh, My Darling, in 1947, and didn't finish until 1964-17 years later. Over its 1,198 words, the novel tells the stories of a woman on a bus looking for her childhood caretaker, and her mother who is caught in a permanent opium dream. Clarissa, Samuel Richardson. In the 18th century, Samuel Richardson was a well-liked and active writer in England. He released his magnum opus, Clarissa, in 1748. It was the longest novel ever written at the time, clocking in at 970,000 words. Poor Fellow My Country, Xavier Herbert. Poor Fellow My Country by Xavier Herbert is the longest novel ever to be published in a single volume, clocking in at 1,463 pages. Additionally, it is the longest novel ever written in Australia. Its 1975 publication marked the end of Herbert's protracted writing career. Dream of the Red Chamber, Cao Xueqian. Dream of the Red Chamber, one of the four great novels of traditional Chinese literature, was written by Cao Xueqian sometime in the middle of the 1700s. Only the first 80 chapters of the book were completed by Xueqian during his lifetime, and for 40 years following his passing, these chapters were shared as unpublished manuscripts. After 40 more chapters by different authors were completed, the lengthy tale was formally published. Water Margan Shi Nian. Water Margan is one of the oldest books on our list and one of the desired four great novels. Although the exact date of composition is unknown, the majority of experts concur that it was initially composed during the 14th century. The majority of English versions of the work include 212,000 words spread throughout 850 pages. Jerusalem, Alan Moore. Author Alan Moore is most known for his graphic novels and comic books, such as V for Vendetta and The Watchmen, but he has also authored a number of novels, including Jerusalem, in 2016. The tale of the more than 1,000-page book, which is set in Moore's hometown of Northampton, England, spans many centuries. A Suitable Boy, Vikram Seth. A Suitable Boy, by Vikram Seth, which has 1,349 pages, was released in 1993 as a single book. The experiences of four different families are followed in the book immediately after 1947's English partition of India. Following its much acclaimed publication, Seth's extensive work of historical fiction was turned into a miniseries by the BBC in 2020. Jean-Christophe, Romain Rolland. In 1904, Romain Rolland started releasing his masterpiece. The final book was published in 1912, 8 years after the first 9 volumes, although it is still regarded as a single work. Over the span of 1,577 pages, Jean-Christophe chronicles the life of the title character from birth to death. Remembrance Rock, Carl Sandburg. Pulitzer Prize-winning poet Carl Sandburg wrote only one novel in his lifetime, and that novel was Remembrance Rock, published in 1948. Considered a triumph of American literature, the book recounts numerous stories and anecdotes from nearly every era of American history, spanning more than 1,000 pages. Musashi, Eiji Yoshikawa. Published in 1935, Musashi is loosely based on the life of 17th-century swordsman Miyamoto Musashi. Written by Eiji Yoshikawa, Musashi was originally released as a serial in Japanese newspapers, but was eventually published as a single 984-page novel. Gordana, Maria Juric-Zagorka. Croatian author and advocate for women's rights Maria Juric-Zagorka. The lengthy historical fiction novel, Gordana, written by Zagorka, was published in 1935 and is the largest work of her career. The tale, which has been published in as many as 12 volumes, centers on the sword-wielding heroine Gordana, who must traverse the turbulent events of 15th-century Croatia. Thank you for watching. Please do subscribe for more information. Please do support us.